The moment Hannah realized everyone in the restaurant was watching her, her chest tightened like invisible hands were squeezing the air out of her lungs, and suddenly the chair beneath her felt too small to carry the weight of her humiliation. Her fingers trembled against the cold glass of water she hadn't touched, and across from her, Tyler leaned back with the kind of careless indifference that could shatter a person without ever raising its voice. Conversations around them slowed, eyes drifted toward her, and in that fragile moment, she understood what it felt like to be quietly dismantled in public. What would you do if you were sitting there instead of her? Would you hold your composure and pretend your heart wasn't cracking open, or would you run before anyone could see you break? She had agreed to the blind date because her coworker insisted Tyler was successful, kind, and looking for something real. Hannah hadn't been looking for anything. She was 29, working 2 jobs in Columbus, Ohio, still carrying the invisible bruises of a past relationship that had drained her confidence piece by piece. She had spent years rebuilding herself, convincing her reflection that she was worthy of being seen again. But Tyler didn't see her. He saw her nervous hands, her thrift store dress she had carefully ironed that morning, and whatever expectations he had brought with him that she somehow failed to meet within seconds. He didn't yell or cause a scene. That would have been easier to survive. Instead, he dismissed her with a quiet cruelty that lingered longer than any shouted insult ever could. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping harshly against the floor, and left her sitting there like an unfinished thought. No apology. No hesitation. Just absence. The silence he left behind was louder than anything he could have said. Hannah felt the heat rush to her face, her eyes stinging as she fought the tears threatening to expose her vulnerability to strangers who would forget her by morning but whose judgment would stay with her forever. She reached for her purse, her only instinct now to escape before her composure betrayed her. She could feel the weight of every insecurity she had ever buried rising to the surface, whispering that maybe this was proof she was still not enough. But before she could stand, another chair moved. Marcus had been sitting at the adjacent table, pretending not to notice the unraveling moment beside him. He hadn't meant to listen, but pain had a way of announcing itself without words. He saw Tyler leave. He saw Hannah shrink into herself like a wounded animal trying to disappear. And something inside him refused to let that be the end of her story. Marcus knew rejection intimately. 5 years earlier, he had stood in a hospital hallway in Dayton, watching doctors tell him they had done everything they could for his younger sister. He remembered the helplessness, the way the world continued spinning while his own had stopped. He remembered how strangers had walked past him, unaware of the quiet devastation unfolding in his chest. And he remembered one nurse who had simply sat beside him, saying nothing, but refusing to let him be alone in that moment. Now, looking at Hannah, he saw that same fragile isolation. He stood, his heart beating faster than he expected, unsure if he was overstepping but certain he couldn't just watch her leave believing she deserved what had happened. He gently stepped closer, his presence careful, not demanding. Hannah looked up, startled, her tear-filled eyes meeting his. For a second, she braced herself for more judgment, more dismissal, more confirmation of her fears. But Marcus's expression carried none of that. He didn't see embarrassment. He didn't see failure. He saw someone hurting. And he refused to let her walk away carrying that pain alone. Hannah hesitated. Her instinct told her to run, to protect herself from further harm. Life had taught her that kindness often came with conditions, that hope could be a dangerous thing. But Marcus wasn't offering promises. He wasn't trying to fix her or rescue her. He was simply standing there, steady and present, like an anchor in the middle of her storm. She sat back down slowly, her breathing uneven. For the first time since Tyler had left, she didn't feel like everyone was staring at her. The world narrowed to this small, unexpected moment of grace. Marcus wasn't extraordinary. He worked as an auto mechanic, his hands permanently marked with oil stains that never fully washed away. He lived alone, drove an aging truck, and carried his own quiet griefs. But he understood something Tyler didn't. He understood that people weren't disposable. That dignity wasn't something earned by perfection. He saw Hannah as human. They didn't need grand gestures or perfect words. They shared something simpler. They shared presence. Outside, the Ohio evening stretched wide and forgiving, the street lights flickering to life as if offering second chances to anyone brave enough to accept them. Hannah had spent so long believing she needed to prove her worth to be chosen, that she had forgotten she was worthy simply because she existed. Marcus never asked her to explain what happened. He never asked her to justify her pain. He simply treated her like she mattered. And sometimes, that was enough to begin healing. Over the following weeks, Hannah began to rediscover parts of herself she